senior leader, understanding the communication chasm is critical to your ability to be able to bring the people inside your organization along with you so that the change and your ability to get through it is as painless and as fast as it can possibly be. When it comes to communicating change, theoretically, the best way to communicate change is top down. When the decision gets made, you then communicate to the next layer, who then communicates to the next layer, who then communicates to the next layer. And that usually is the right answer. But how often have you been in a situation where, you've made a decision, you've communicated it to one layer, and then the rumor mill has gotten a hold of it, and now people are asking questions who shouldn't really yet know, and yet they're asking questions of their leader who have no idea what they're talking about. So communicating change, or communicating in the midst of change, is a very, very messy prospect. But when we talk about the communication chasm, we're going to approach it from the perspective of the right way to communicate change is top down. Now, when you're communicating change, whether you're expecting the change, not expecting the change, involved in making the change, everybody goes through what we call phases of resistance. If you're not familiar with the phases of resistance, please take a look at the video that talks about phases of resistance. But essentially, every single person goes through 4, arguably 5, but certainly 4 phases of resistance when it comes to dealing with the loss associated with change. So the first stage is what we call denial. So denial is where, we first hear about it, we're in a little bit of shock, we're not really sure, not really acknowledging that change is even happening. The next stage is anxiety. Here, we're beginning to understand that, oh my gosh, this is really happening, this is real, now I'm frustrated, I'm scared, I'm annoyed, I'm afraid, I don't know what to do, I'm maybe losing my mind. As the time goes by, we potentially can have people check out, hopefully they can check back in. So we've got check out, check in. Then we've got something called exploring. Exploring is where we come to terms with the fact that it's happening. The change is here to stay. And now I need to be able to figure out, okay, how do I make this work? But I'm frustrated because I'm in between the old way and the new way. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm really motivated and wanting to make sure that I can do it, but I can't figure it out. I'm still in the chaotic mess of trying to make it happen. And then the final stage is called motivated. Motivated is where I'm very hopeful, I'm very optimistic, I'm truly embracing the change at this point. Maybe I'm even at a point where I'm even looking for the next new thing, the next new opportunity. So here we've got these phases of resistance. Along the bottom, we've got a timeline. Now remember when I was just saying that communication theoretically is best communicated top down? Well, at the point in time of 0, let's call it, where the decision is made at the executive level, which is you at point in time 0 have made the decision or are aware of the change. Maybe it's come down from the board of directors or, from somewhere, you've been told, mandated perhaps, but you are point in time 0. So this is you. At the next time moment, you are going to communicate, let's say, to your director level. So maybe at point 1, maybe it's 1 month later, it's 1 week later, maybe it's 1 hour later. In the case of COVID-19, things are happening very, very rapidly. So maybe it's only an hour. But at point in time number 1, you're communicating to your directors. At point in time 2, now your directors are communicating to your managers. Now maybe it's 1 month, 1 week, 1 day, 1 hour, same thing. And it doesn't have to be the exact same time frame, but the point is, in top-down communication, you communicate layers at a time as you get things figured out. So these might be your managers. And let's just say at point in time 3, here is where you're communicating broadly to the whole rest of your organization, and all of the individual contributors inside your organization now hear this message. Okay. So what happens when, at the executive level, you either hear about the change or you make the change, even as you're going through it? What happens is you and the people that are involved in this decision begin to go through the phases of resistance. Everybody goes through this. Nobody is immune. Sometimes people will try to skip, but I say to you that if people skip steps, it's going to come back to haunt you. You can't sweep psychological elements under the rug and expect that they're not going to come back bigger and worse. So theoretically, as an executive team, you're going to go through the phases of resistance. So let me add this. Now, notice I've not drawn a straight line. It can, you can go back and forth. People will, I'll have a good day, I'll have a bad day. Maybe I'm here from a work perspective, I'm somewhere else from a family perspective. So it's not a perfect linear progression. And there can be some backsliding as well. So maybe I'm up at exploring one day, something happens, and I come back and I'm in anxiety the next day. So at the point in time that you hear about this, or you've made the decision, you're already going through it. Now, the next time module, you are now communicating this to your directors. Well, now what happens to your directors? They too begin naturally to go through the phases of resistance. So same thing, let me add them. So the director level has this opportunity now to do exactly what it is that you've done. Now, moment in time number 2, moment in time number 3, every group of people are going to begin to go through the phases of resistance in their own time, in their own way, but starting at the point at which in time they hear about the change. Okay, so let me add these two groups. Okay, so what's the point here? What is it that I want you to notice? When you get to the point where you're now communicating it, let's say to your frontline staff, to everybody. Maybe you have a town hall. Maybe you put out a video like what you're watching now. Maybe you put out something in your newsletter. Whatever it looks like, you're at the point in time where your individual contributors, now everybody knows. So the question is, on the day in which they hear it, where is everybody else? So let's see. All right. So if this is the moment in time where everybody else is now hearing about it, where, as they begin to go through the phases of resistance, right, denial, anxiety, they're beginning to process, where is their boss? Well, their boss potentially is in the anxiety, frustration, stress, anger stage, low on acceptance, and yet this boss has to be able to communicate to their team in a positive and motivational way. But whether or not that comes across remains to be seen. Depends on different individuals and depends on how strong they are as a leader. Okay? So their direct supervisor or their closest person in relationship to them who is in authority is potentially struggling. Okay, well, where's their boss? Where's the director? Well, the director is over here in exploring. They're, rah, still a little bit of frustration, but they're in solution mode. They're on the acceptance side of the grid. They're expecting everybody to, come up with these great ideas and be positive and be motivated and be energized and be engaged and do all of these things and look for ways to fix it and look for ways to make it work. That's where they are, right? Potentially even ready to move on to the next thing. But here's the question. Where are you? You're done, potentially. In this example, anyway, you're done. You're moving on. You're already looking at the next new thing. Is that a problem? Well, it certainly can be, because if you're not aware of what's happening and what the layout is on this communication chasm, and you do a town hall, or you do a video, or you write something in the newsletter, what is the tone going to be? What is the message going to be if you're writing it? Well, it's going to be about, this is, our business is really coming out of this. We're better, we're stronger, and we're really looking on the positive side. But where am I when I'm hearing this message as an individual contributor? I'm in shock. I'm thinking, I immediately go into self-preservation and survival mode. I think about, how is this going to impact me? What is this going to mean to my job, to my family, to my business, to my financial situation, to my retirement, to everything. And here you are talking about, come on, everybody, this is an amazing thing. And I'm down here totally freaking out. So what you need to understand as a leader about this communication chasm is that you need to be aware of where everybody is. People will want to very much be in the motivated stage. We all want to be there. We all want to get there. Psychologically, though, sometimes we're just not there at the same time. So what happens if you have an executive, and maybe you as a leader of this organization, maybe you're somebody who's going through this very quickly, because maybe you're very visionary, you're very proactive, you love change, and you're super optimistic, and so maybe you're somebody who goes through this very quickly. What if you have somebody, your director or manager or your people on your front line who are maybe much slower, who are a little bit more resistant, and who are struggling? Their life situation or whatever's going on for them is causing them maybe to dig their heels in a little bit, or to not be able to, get on board as quickly as possible. Maybe their personality just is not one where they are readily adapting to change very, very quickly. So we've got you on the fast track and them on the slow track. Now you've got an even bigger chasm. So as leaders, you've got to be able to understand and keep in mind, not that you need to slow down, and not that anybody else needs to skip steps, but what do you as an organization need to do such that you can get people from the denial to the motivated as quickly and in as healthy a way as possible. That's the key. But it starts with you understanding that this communication chasm is real and it exists.